Devon Archer sits in front of a closed-door House committee to answer questions and give testimony about what happened while he was observing Joe Biden and Hunter Biden with Hunter's business dealings. Unfortunately for all of us, the only thing that really came out of this, because we haven't seen anything live, just read testimony at this point, is that it has backed everybody further into their corners and provided absolutely no unity. But we'll parse through some of the propaganda, we'll parse through some of the reaction, and see if we can't get to the bottom of what it is that Devon Archer said. In other news, Elon Musk refused Ukraine's Starlink and is called the demon of the entire world for doing so, in spite of the fact that Starlink has brought broadband to many rural parts of the country that Joe Biden also wants to bring broadband to. But we'll talk about that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. Donald Trump vows that he shall run for president from prison if he must, to come back out and be the savior of the people. And, well, people lap it right up, and CNN tells you that cold that you have in the middle of summer, hey, that might be the commie coof. It's going to be all of this and more. I love to sing about the Moona and the Juna and the Springa. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So we launched from a Friday where we got everything finished because Friday was such a slow news day while we sat on indictment watch, which, by the way, still has not come. The January 6th indictment that we were promised 2 weeks ago, it's still not here. So that's not going to be talked about today, but we've got some Devon Archer news. What I was saying when I just brought into that, we went from a slow news day that was able to let everybody catch up, and I think I even got out a little bit early on Friday, into another packed news day. And I mean, there's a good variety of stuff. We're not going to spend the whole day talking about Devon Archer, thankfully. We've got some other stuff to go over. Nancy Mace saying that maybe we shouldn't go back out and do the impeachment, which I disagree with her on, but I understand the reasoning for her saying this. San Francisco knocked the X sign off of X headquarters, which is formerly Twitter headquarters. DeSantis trying to redo his campaign and trying to go on a strictly economic forum, which might win some points for me for him, except for the fact that he signed SB 269. So we've got that. CNN trying to make the commie coup happen again. It's like, fetch, it is never going to happen. And even some suspicious criminal things going on. A person walked into a Jewish school, shot at the school, and got shot by cops, or maybe shot himself, we don't know. Some old guy drove into some illegal migrants. We'll look at see if there's intent there. And a bomb threat in Miami. So a lot of stuff to talk about here today over on Contemporary. So grab some friends, get some food, get a snack, get some people in here. Remember, we check in with the live chat in its full form at the end of the show today, and I'll be interacting a little bit here and there with you guys, so feel free to react live. But we'll go through and read everything that you guys chatted throughout the show today over here on Contemporary. So let's get in, let's get started, and before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Cloud World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, and Overruled with KTZed. That's right, go check out all that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. Stop getting your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your house, and people who hate you. Start getting your news and culture from people who are just like you. And let's get into it, and let's get started. I said let's get started. All right, we're going to start with the Dow today, as we always do. A little bit of finance to get us started here and get you some time to go tell 10 friends about this. Text 10 friends right now. Hey, there's KTZed right there. Overruled with KTZed. Right there. I'm going to talk to KTZed maybe after the show. Just give her an update on some things that are happening around life here. Maybe not. It's an hour later there. That's past bedtime for people who work in the morning. Anyway, let's get started. Starting with the Dow, which actually spent the day jump roping with the previous close today before taking a significant hike at the very end of the day and the futures turning up afterwards. The Dow ending up 100.24 points, about 0.25% to 35,559.53. On the day today, we will see what happens. Excuse me, that's a massive hiccup there. I did not intend to do that. Right in your ears, I apologize for that. We will see what happens with this, with the futures looking up, and see if we get another 13-day streak of rise on the Dow. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which is at 29,202 even, 29,202 US dollars even. On the day, that is down 79 US dollars and 30 US cents, or 0.25% after taking a big tumble from its otherwise upwards day, looking out over the weekend because it is Monday, and it looks like there was a big roller coaster on the Bitcoin. It was up, it was down, it was up, it was down, ending down again, and even going back out to the 5-day, it looks like it ended down 151.2 US dollars, about 0.5% down on 5-day, but still at 29,202 US dollars. Looking at your gas prices, thankfully those have not moved, even though we saw a spike towards the beginning of last week. They are holding steady right now. 350 is the Madison average with a couple outliers. The 329, that quick trip, with every other quick trip being at 350 in town, that is a major outlier, and I don't know what it is that they're doing right there that nobody else is. 340 entering the isthmus, 350 on the isthmus, with a 346 also on the isthmus, and a 340 out on the west side as well. So for the most part, your gas prices have stayed the same throughout the Madison area. Remember, these are not your local gas prices. Check your local listings to see what your gas prices are, but we will continue to watch these and see what the pattern is for one particular market and see how it plays out against your specific market. Our finance report today comes from CNBC. Stock futures are a little changed as Wall Street's busiest earnings week continues, from Ha-Kyung Kim. U.S. futures traded near flatline Monday as investors await a flood of corporate earnings reports. The Dow fell by 3 points, or 0.01%. Futures linked to the S&P and the Nasdaq climbed 0.03 and 0.04 respectively. The major indices all ended on Monday's main trading session modestly higher. The Dow rose 0.28%, while the S&P and the Nasdaq edged up 0.15 and 0.21% respectively. In July, the S&P and the Dow each gained more than 3%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq advanced about 4.1%. More than 160 S&P 500 constituents are slated to report their latest quarterly results this week. More than half of the companies in the broad market index have already reported, with 80% posting earnings beats, according to KTZed. This further raises hopes that the economy will be able to avoid a recession as inflation begins to show signs of slowing. Bullshit. To be sure, Global Investments Senior Portfolio Manager Keith Buchanan noted that expectations coming into this season were negative. We beat the bar, but still, thus far, we have been indicating that we're going to end up in negative year-over-year growth from an earnings standpoint, said Buchanan. But we're more concerned and frankly somewhat optimistic about the earnings picture for the second half of this year, particularly in 2024 Hong Kong. He added that signs of a widening market rally have emerged in the past month. As the market continues to kind of turn higher, we're expecting a broader participation, with small cap participating with some spaces of the value cohort participating well, Buchanan said. Well, we'll see. I still see a recession in the future, but we'll see what happens with that, especially with a supply chain snarl and a major layoff like this. Our layoffs report today from CNN Business. Well, why? Predicting what we're about to talk about, because he is just a few seconds behind here. 99-year-old trucking company Yellow shuts down, putting 30,000 out of work. I feel like I'm cheating using this as my layoffs report, by the way, because we actually did talk about this on Friday, but we didn't have a number on Friday. We have a number now. From Chris Isidore. Yellow Corporation, a 99-year-old trucking company that was once a dominant player in its field, halted operations on Sunday and will lay off all 30,000 of its workers. The unionized company has been in battle with the Teamsters Union, which represents about 22,000 drivers and dock workers in the company. Just a week ago, the union canceled a threatened strike that had been prompted by the company failing to contribute to its pension and health insurance plans. The union granted the company an extra month to make the required payments. But by midweek, the company had stopped picking up freight from its customers and making deliveries only of freight already in its system, according to both the union and Satish Jindal, a trucking industry consultant. While the union agreed not to go on strike against Yellow, it could not reach an agreement on a new contract with the trucking company, according to a memo sent to local unions Thursday by the Teamsters Negotiating Committee. The union said early Monday that it had been notified of the shutdown, and another union fails to protect its members and keep their jobs. Today's news is unfortunate but not surprising. Yellow has historically proven that it could not manage itself, despite billions of dollars in worker concessions with hundreds of millions of bailout funding from the federal government. This is a sad day for workers in the American freight industry, said Teamsters President Sean O'Brien in a statement. Company officials did not respond to numerous requests for comment on Sunday and Monday. While the company is based in Nashville, its national company, with terminals and employees spread between more than 300 terminals nationwide in all 50 states, if I remember correctly. Not all 50, because Hawaii, but 49, at least 48 contiguous states, and I think they are in Alaska too. Experts in the field said it was primarily an unaffordable amount of debt, more than the cost of the union contract that did in Yellow. The Teamsters had made a series of painful concessions that brought them close to wage parity with non-union carriers, said Tom Nightingale, CEO of AFS Logistics, a third-party logistics firm that places about $11 billion worth of freight annually with different trucking companies on behalf of shippers. He said the company began taking on a significant amount of debt 20 years ago in order to acquire other trucking companies. Now their debt service is just enormous, he said, pointing to a $1.5 billion debt on its books. And with freight being what it is right now, and fuel being what it is right now especially, the more you're spending on getting that freight from one place to another, the less you have left over to go pay your bills with. And I mean, it's a vicious circle. There was more than just the debt, but it was more than the Teamsters Union too. It was probably a big combination of the two coming with this, but they're gone. 30,000 jobs just disappeared overnight. I do anticipate that a lot of these Teamsters are going to be able to get back into the workforce relatively quickly. It's going to drive wages down in the trucking industry per mile because you're suddenly flooded with 30,000 new drivers, dock workers, etc. But it's one of those things too. I mean, anything that you have in your house, anything that you've eaten, anything that you've decorated the wall with, any video game that you've played has been on a truck at one point. So we'll see what happens with that and what this does both to the supply chain and to the employment. It's going to be an interesting way to see this spin, but we've got to go talk, speaking of spin, about Devon Archer. We're going to start with ABC News today. Devon Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner, testifies before House Oversight Committee. From Lauren Peller and Will Staken, not Streaken. We're not going Streaken, it's not Will Ferrell. Admittedly, and embarrassingly, I have seen that movie. Devon Archer a former business associate of Hunter Biden, met with lawmakers behind closed doors on Monday to testify about the younger Biden's business dealings and what, if any, involvement his father had with them. Archer and his attorney Matthew Schwartz were on Capitol Hill for several hours for a closed-door interview with Republican-led House Oversight Committee. Archer was expected to provide details related to Hunter's business dealings in Ukraine, ABC News previously reported. Archer and Hunter partnered the investment firm Rosemont Seneca, and the two served together on the board of directors at Ukrainian oil and gas firm Burisma. Hunter wrote in 2021 that it was Archer who initially raised my name for a possible board seat at Burisma. ABC News reported that Biden and Archer, who also secured a seat for himself, raked in $166,666 worth of payments each month for their work with the firm. Republicans portrayed Archer's testimony as key in their investigation into the Biden family and came as House GOP leaders prioritized efforts to open an impeachment inquiry into President Biden by attempting to link him to his son's business dealings. When the panel subpoenaed Archer in June, it stated he played a significant role in the Biden family's business deals abroad, including, but not limited to, China, Russia, and Ukraine. Mr. Archer's testimony is critical to the committee's investigation, House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer said at the time. Mr. Archer was Hunter's business partner in a number of transactions involving foreign nationals and foreign companies. However, Comer's office said Monday he wouldn't be in attendance for the closed-door testimony. Some lawmakers spotted arriving for the session were House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, Democratic Rep. Dan Goldman, and Republican Rep. Andy Biggs. Jordan, stepping out during the interview, told reporters it's very productive, but declined to get into specifics until it was over. Congressional Republicans have repeatedly claimed that President Biden was more involved in his son's business affairs than he's disclosed. Sorry, I got an itch in my nose. Must be allergy season starting up again. Allegations Biden and the White House have denied. So far, their investigations into the Biden family have revealed little new information. Last week, a New York Post report that claimed Archer was going to testify that Hunter Biden had put his father on speakerphone with business associates during the elder Biden's time as vice president. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre, asked about the report, said that President Biden was never in business with his son. Rep. Goldman, D. New York, said Monday that Archer indicated Hunter spoke to his father every day and approximately 20 times over the course of a 10-year relationship. Hunter may have put his father on the phone with any number of different people, and they never once spoke about any business dealings. Archer clarified that it was sometimes people that they were trying to do business with, and it was sometimes friends or other social engagements, according to Goldman, who spoke with reporters about halfway through the closed-door interview. The witness was very consistent that none of the conversations ever had to do with any business dealings or transactions, Goldman said. They were purely what he called casual conversations. There is no evidence connecting President Biden to anything related to Hunter Biden. We've been told by Republicans repeatedly that this is an investigation into Joe. There's no evidence that connects Joe to any of this. And we've now had witness after witness come in, and they've testified to the same thing, Goldman said in the letter. Joe has nothing to do with this. He just talked on the phone with business associates. As a reminder that this was the vice president's son. Now, there's still some problems with this, and as much as I would like to see, after everything that's happened, the Biden presidency go down in flames for this, number one, I know it's not going to happen. They can impeach until they're blue in the face. Chuck U. Schumer, as an extension of Nancy Pelosi, has that Senate in lockstep, and they will never break rank to vote for an impeachment and conviction. They can impeach Biden 7 times and have an audio recording of him saying, "Hey man, you pay me $5 million, man, or I'm going to make sure that we do influence peddling against you." And nobody on the Senate is going to vote to convict. They'll say it was deep faked or something. Because we are in a partisan position in this country. We'll talk about it a little bit later because Nancy Mace is actually pushing onto this. But as far as what goes to the voters, about 40% of the voters in this country have already made up their mind that Joe Biden is innocent. Because they listen to people like Rep. Dan Goldman. And about 40% of this country has made up their minds that Joe Biden is guilty. Because they listen to Donald Trump. On the independent side, there is going to have to be a show of intent. Because the mainstream news media is going to continue to come back up and tell you over and over and over and over again that this is just a witch hunt. It's partisan. And there's no evidence anywhere. Most of the people are not going to sit down and read the testimony or listen to hours of interview. This is something that I do. Because number one, I like to torture myself. And number two, because then I know what I'm talking about when I come here and sit in front of the microphone. And I will admit to this point, because of work, I have not read the testimony, and it happened while I was at work, so I don't know what was said in this meeting. The news media is going to disseminate some of what was said here. I want to take most all of it with a grain of salt because, as you can see, ABC, owned by Disney, Newsweek, Associated Press, there's a Fox up there too, but I mean, like I said at the Twitter announcement, everyone just backed into their corners for this. Directly into their corners, further and further. The witness repeated over and over again that the president never discussed any business dealing of Hunter's with Hunter or anyone else, Goldman said. Goldman added, so the implication that because Hunter put his father on the speakerphone with people that Hunter was doing business with had meant that President Biden had any discussions about business is fake. That's not necessarily true, actually. And in a situation, by the way, when you're doing business with foreign entities, and you've got your father, who is the sitting vice president at the time, in the room with you, throwing him on speaker and saying, hey, talk to this guy. That is a show of force. Now the issue, and one of the big things, by the way, is we need to find recordings of this, if there are any. Which, I mean, I'm to the understanding, maybe this doesn't extend to the vice president. But wasn't it a thing where like every conversation that Donald Trump got on while he was the president had to be recorded? Fact check me if I'm wrong, by the way. But I was to the understanding that there was nothing that could be secret coming from the executive branch. And again, maybe it's just the president, or maybe it was just because it was Trump. Especially when it's with a foreign entity. If that's not the case, I'll come right out and say that I'm sorry, that was not the case. But I know they made a really big deal about that during impeachment 1.0. But there is, I mean, there's the implied point of what's the point of putting him on the phone? And that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. If not to peddle influence, then why come out and tell your foreign business associates and adversaries, hey, I've got the vice president right here. But to implicate Joe with it again, that's got to be an intent crime. And having not read the transcript, I don't see the intent yet. I'm not saying I don't believe that it's there. But it's something Republicans are going to have to come up with if they're going to do this and sell it to the American people. And by the way, Andy Biggs pointing out too, right before we get off of this. Let me get back to here. Republican Biggs confirmed Archer said President Biden never spoke with Hunter's business associates beyond pleasantries. Biggs highlighted what he said was testimony from Archer, claiming that Burisma would not have survived without the Bidens. That's speculative. You still need evidence of that. According to Biggs, Archer told lawmakers Burisma would have gone out of business. Had the Biden brand not been invoked, people would be intimidated to legally mess with Burisma because of the Biden family brand. So, lots of things that are happening with this. But also, the story is changing over and over again. At first, it was Biden never spoke with Hunter about his business dealings, and now it's, oh, he was just never in business with him. But he spoke to him all the time. He was a loving father. I'd like to see more of where this goes. I don't think we're there yet, but I would like to see this investigated out to its logical conclusion. Reading from Newsweek, everything we know about what Devon Archer told Congress about Hunter Biden. From Catherine Fung. Republican lawmakers finally heard from Devon Archer, a former business partner of Hunter's, after multiple attempts to get him to appear for a congressional deposition. Archer, who previously served as a board member of Burisma, an energy company based in Ukraine alongside Biden and co-founded by Rosemont Seneca Partners, with the president's son, testified Monday before the House Oversight Committee in a closed-door meeting. Mr. Archer is associated with corporate entities that the committee has identified and the Biden family's role in each of them. The Kentucky Republican Jim Comer wrote to Archer's counsel in a June 12th letter. Furthermore, he has significant information regarding the purpose of these companies and knowledge of the relevant documents related to the committee's investigation. In a thread on X, GOP lawmakers on the oversight panel said, Archer's testimony confirms Joe Biden lied to the American people when he said he had no knowledge about his son's business dealings and was not involved. And yes, they will try to gaslight you on that and tell you, no, it's just that he didn't do business with Hunter now. And we always said that. The lawmakers also said Archer testified that Biden had joined his son and his business associates in person or by speakerphone over 20 times, that the younger Biden was added to Burisma's board because of his father, and that Burisma executives put constant pressure on Hunter to get help from D.C. regarding a Ukrainian prosecutor that was investigating the company, which that's the Shokin thing that has been brought up from the beginning. One thing, by the way, that I have yet to hear any Democrat bring up or answer to. If everything that Hunter was doing was above board anyway, why is it so important for us to know that Biden, number one, when this started out, had no knowledge of anything that Hunter did, or B, was not in business with his son? Why is that so important if everything was above board? Comments from one Democrat lawmaker on the oversight panel cast doubt as to whether Archer provided House Republicans with the smoking gun they'd hoped to find. And I didn't think that Devon's testimony was going to be the smoking gun. Number one, because he is, and we'll be talking about the arrest attempt in just a moment, but because he is under active surrender for white-collar crime, one of the things that we're being told is that his testimony is meaningless anyway because he's a known criminal. And I knew that was going to be dismissed outright, just like anything else that goes against Biden. And a lot of it was going to be dismissed with, well, what about Trump? Because they can't defend Biden without invoking the Orange Man's name. The Associated Press actually giving some lucid reporting. Hunter Biden sold illusion of access to his father, a former business partner tells Congress. From Barnoush Amiri, there's going to be editorialization in this. I haven't pre-read it, and I know there's going to be editorialization in this. Hunter's former business partner insisted in testimony to Congress on Monday that President Joe was never directly involved in their financial dealings, though Hunter would often put his famous father on speakerphone to impress clients and business associates. The Republican-led House Oversight Committee conducted a more than 5-hour interview with Archer as part of its expanding congressional inquiry into the Biden family business, as the GOP explores a potential impeachment inquiry into the president. Both Republican and Democrat lawmakers inside the closed-door interview said Archer testified that over the span of 10 years, Hunter put his father on the phone about 20 times while the company of associates, but never once spoke about any business dealings. Biggs, reading from his notes, said Archer testified that the Ukrainian gas company Burisma would have gone out of business. We talked about that. Focusing on that idea, Jim Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee, said in a statement late Monday that Biden was the brand that his son sold around the world to enrich the Biden family. We're aware that all sides are claiming victory following Mr. Archer's voluntary interview today, Archer's attorney Matthew Schwartz said in a statement. But all Devin Archer did was exactly what he said he would, show up and answer the questions and put to him honestly and completely. He added that Mr. Archer shared the truth with the committees, and we will leave to them and others to decide what to do with it. So, and one of the other things that I would like to point out with this is how some of the mainstream media outlets are turning on this. Now, one thing to remember, and I do think that this story goes just a little bit deeper than Joe and Hunter. And I think that there is somebody that's higher profile that's involved, but has to be protected at all costs, because as vice president, let me remind you that Joe really didn't have any diplomacy dealings that he didn't first have to get approved by Barack. He could go give a speech or something, try to rally the troops or trying to rally morale somewhere where they were currently bombing brown kids. But as far as direct foreign access, he didn't have it at the time. But Barack did. And remember, their bromance was so famous that it was the subject of memes upon memes at the time. And a part of me deep down just has to wonder if Joe isn't the stand-in. That's part of the reason they honked him in. Because Hunter was so high up on the board, it would make sense for him to come out and say, "Hey man, I'm going to come back out here and protect my boy, man, because that's my boy." And instead let Joe, who is 80, 78 at the time of election, go in and be the sacrificial lamb so that people stop stiffing around a certain other president who was also deeply and closely connected with old Joe. But that's what we have for that. Let's see, what else do we have? We know that one. We know that one. We know that one. So I want to talk a bit about this one. This goes into a little bit more detail about what I forgot his name already. Rep. Goldman had to say about this. Democrat downplays Hunter Biden associate Devin Archer's testimony, from Emily Brooks. Former Hunter associate Devin Archer said during a closed-door testimony Hunter included President Biden on a number of phone calls that presumably included business associates, according to one lawmaker's account of the testimony, a revelation that's likely to fuel Republican attempts to link the president to his son's business dealings. Let's see. Goldman says the witness indicated Hunter spoke to his father every day and approximately 20 times over the course of a 10-year relationship. Hunter may have put his father on the phone with any number of different people, and they never once spoke about any business dealings. As he described it, it was all casual conversation, niceties, the weather, what's going on, Goldman said, adding that there wasn't a single conversation about any of the business dealings that Hunter had. The readout of the testimony appears to partially back up the Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer's statement to the New York Post last week that he expected Archer to discuss the times he has witnessed Joe Biden meeting with Hunter's overseas business partners when he was vice president, including on speakerphone. Not only that, there's pictures of him shaking hands with these people on the laptop from hell. And of course, Karine Jean-Pierre says he was never in business with his son. So, a few things going on with that. So, interestingly enough, on this, as Devon Archer was getting ready to testify, the DOJ sent him his surrender letter, which was leaked out to the public. And it didn't make it seem like he was to be arrested before his closed-door deposition today. So this is a little bit of review over the weekend here. We're going to look to Politico first, looking at the charges as he prepares for Hill testimony. Hunter's ex-business partners also trying to fend off jail. This is from Kyle Cheney and Jordan Carney. On the eve of high-profile testimony to a House committee, Hunter's longtime business partner, Devon Archer, is wrangling with Justice Department about when he should report to prison on unrelated charges. A jury in 2018 convicted Archer of 2 felonies for his role in a conspiracy to defraud a Native American tribe, but his 2022 sentence has been repeatedly postponed amid a long-running series of appeals. And, by the way, a reminder that if any of the rest of us was convicted of 2 felonies, we'd already be in prison. In 2018, we'd already be halfway through our sentence, because honestly, these are low-level felonies. He's probably going to get 5 years, tops. On Saturday, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York wrote to trial judge Ronnie Abrams and asked her to schedule a date for Archer to report to prison after the Second Circuit Court of Appeals finalized an order days earlier upholding his 1-year sentence. It's not even 5 years, it's going to be 1 year. I think the rest of us would have got 5, but the court isn't expected to make a decision before Archer will meet behind closed doors with the House Oversight Committee, meaning that even if the court ultimately sides with the request, Archer wouldn't have to report to prison before the meeting. And his attorney said in a statement that he will move forward with his planned appearance on Monday. The spokesperson for the Office of the U.S. Attorney for the SDNY declined to comment on the filing or the timing of the letter. But according to the one-page letter filed by Assistant U.S. Attorney Nagar Taki, prosecutors had asked Archer's attorney to recommend a reporting date in light of the Second Circuit ruling, but were rebuffed. Now, what I want to talk about is not the fact that Devon Archer didn't go to prison today or before the testimony today. What I want to talk about is the timing of the announcement, because that's important. Now, I don't think that this was done to intimidate Devon Archer into changing his response. His sentence is set already. He's going to spend a year in the resort. White-collar prison, gym, lots of books, minimum security. He's not going to federal supermax or anything like that. And by the way, nothing that he would have said behind closed doors would have changed that. But see, our news media, and especially our DOJ, is very good at throwing their political enemies into the biggest tantrum and tizzy that they can find, and pulling the conspiracy theorists out of the woodwork, which, given doing something like this, they did. And everybody with a red hat or hashtag MAGA in their bio on X was out there screaming out the fact that they were going to put him away and they were going to prevent him from testifying. And that was done on purpose. Again, I remind you. Because they wanted to make the idea of this look unhinged. And anybody who is against this, or anybody who would take Devon Archer's testimony to heart, is just a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist. Even coming in from the halls of Congress, several House Republicans urged lawmakers to return to D.C. after DOJ requests Devon Archer's surrender from Landon Mione. At least 5 House Republicans have called on lawmakers who are currently enjoying a legislative recess to return to Capitol Hill after the DOJ asked Hunter's business partner Devon Archer to surrender to prison. The request came over the weekend before Archer was scheduled to testify to the committee on Monday. On the Biden family, Hunter's business dealings, and the alleged role of his father, President Biden, in securing these deals. Matt Gaetz of Florida, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, Chip Roy of Texas, Harriet Hageman of Wyoming, Dan Bishop of North Carolina, each said on social media Sunday that lawmakers should return to D.C. for an emergency hearing to discuss possible DOJ interference in the committee's investigation into President Biden and Hunter Biden. Unfortunately, as awesome as it would be to actually catch the DOJ in the act of putting their fingers on the scale, that is not what this was. But it was time to look like that. They did that on purpose. I have no doubt about that. The DOJ is now actively committing the crime of obstructing a congressional investigation, Gaetz wrote. If Devon Archer is in the witness chair on Monday, we better haul every SOB at the DOJ before Congress every day to make them pay for this. Gaetz said that if Archer is not in the witness chair for his testimony Monday, A.G. Garland will be called to testify. But of course, that didn't happen. On the Daily Wire, with a clarification of the blow-up, DOJ clarifies after blow-up over prison letter for ex-Hunter Biden business partner. From Daniel Chayton. The DOJ insisted that its prison request for Hunter's former business partner Devon Archer would not affect his plans for him to testify behind closed doors before a House committee on Monday. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams sent a second letter to a judge in the Southern District of New York on Sunday, after Republicans on the House Oversight Committee raised concerns about the timing of his first letter on Saturday, which urged the court to pick a date for Archer to begin a prison sentence. To be clear, the government does not request and has never requested that the defendant surrender before his congressional testimony, Williams wrote in a letter shared to X by the New York Post columnist Miranda Devine. The federal prosecutor said the process of a defendant surrendering and commencing a prison sentence, which includes being designated to a federal facility by the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, could take several weeks or months after a date is set. And again, I had no doubt that they weren't trying to silence him. And I didn't even know this last part here. But again, it was the timing. It was the memetics of it. It was the show of force to come out and say, hey, you want to test or make this guy testify? Oh, hey, let's remind you that he's going to prison. Let's remind everybody, by the way, who's going to take this testimony as gospel that Devon Archer is going to prison. Very publicly tell him that he's to surrender to prison shortly after this. And also, again, yank all these Republicans back home to have an oversight meeting over getting the DOJ into the seats. This was done on purpose. I want to talk about what Nancy Mace has to say here. And I'm going to juxtapose this against what Rand Paul is saying with a second allegation and recommendation for criminal charges to the DOJ over Dr. Fauci. But I want to talk about Nancy Mace for just a second first. So let's read from The Hill. Nancy Mace says Biden impeachment puts House GOP majority at risk. From Sarah Fortinsky. And as much as I believe that Biden was selling influence, possibly to protect or get Obama involved to enrich himself and everybody else, I actually have to agree with Nancy Mace. This is from Sarah Fortinsky. Nancy Mace said on Sunday that discussion of impeaching President Biden puts Republicans' majority in the House at risk in 2024. by jeopardizing members who represent districts that President Biden won in 2020. That's actually not the reason, but that is one of the factors that's going to play into this. Mace's concerns come as Speaker McCarthy raised the possibility of opening an inquiry into President Biden as House Republicans ramp up their efforts to investigate the Biden family. The rhetoric has come under scrutiny from some in the party who view McCarthy's recent efforts as an attempt to placate the conservative wing as he struggles to get consensus in the party on spending levels. While I do believe we are, at this point, an inquiry is different from an impeachment vote, and is another tool in the toolbox, Mace said in the interview on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream, echoing the sentiment of McCarthy, who has tried to draw a clear distinction between impeachment and an impeachment inquiry. I will tell you, every time we walk the plank, we are putting moderate members in Biden-won districts. We're putting those seats at risk for 2024, and we're putting the majority at risk. It's not just impeachment that does that. Other issues like abortion, etc., also put those members on the plank, Mace continued. Mace said it was still important to proceed with investigations of the Bidens, and that whatever the evidence shows us, we ought to follow the facts, and we have to be better than former Speaker Pelosi. Pelosi really politicized the impeachment process. And that's where Nancy Mace gets this right, in ways more than she thinks that she does. Now, one of the arguments that's already been brought up is legitimately and literally the same argument that Republicans brought up during impeachment 1 and actually, honestly, impeachment 2. And that is the fact that the party in power is now currently spending an impeachment inquiry, which Pelosi herself did not do much of. They had a very abbreviated impeachment inquiry because basically they already had the votes and they were going to come back and impeach no matter what. I mean, if I have to, I'll go back and pull out the Rashida Tlaib clip again, but I know we're all sick of hearing it at this point. But they went into it full force at the beginning of that Congress, already saying they were going to find something to impeach him on. Like in communist states, you bring me the man and I'll find you the crime. So we already knew there was going to be impeachment, we just didn't know at the time what it was going to be for. And I will criticize Marjorie Taylor Greene on this in just a moment for the same thing, but the other thing to remember is who controls the media. And by the way, as much as our Paige Schill friends over on Twitter like to say that Republicans control the corporate media, that's why we don't hear any mention of any of Biden's accomplishments or anything else, or how they don't come back and tout him and worship at his feet everywhere. It is simply not the case, and the corporate media will elevate the narrative of Republicans are just wasting money on an impeachment inquiry they can't win. Now, with the Trump impeachment, we had, by that point, because that was in 2019, 4 years of nonstop wall-to-wall coverage of Trump being the most evil human being that ever existed. He was worse than even Hitler, because he himself was Hitler, but even worse than Hitler. And he wanted to round up anybody who wasn't white in this country and put him in the fiery furnace in front of everybody for everybody to see, and not just do it subvertedly and behind closed doors. He wanted that out on pay-per-view, live stream, for all of his constituents to see, and we got 4 years of nonstop wall-to-wall coverage. By the time impeachment 1.0 was going, because the Democrats and in the media controlled the narrative. What do you think is going to happen this time? Democrats in the media control the narrative. This is a waste of money. They're never going to win, and especially in this situation, Democrats could get away with it because they had their corporate donors in the mainstream media to come back and run cover for them. And not tell you how much the impeachment inquiry costs. I told you how much it costs at the time. But if you don't have that media apparatus behind you, to sit there and spread your propaganda day in and day out. If you take a shot at the king, you better not miss. What happened in... When was Clinton's impeachment? Was that 99 or was that 2000? I think that was 2000. January 7th, 1999, with acquittal on February 12th. So 99. I thought it was 2000 for whatever reason. I thought it was in the midst of a campaign. And if I remember correctly, the House got walloped after that. Okay, well, Democrats ultimately retained control of the House following... No, not 2020. 2000, moron. Yeah, okay, that's it too. The 2000 U.S. representatives were held on November 7th, 2000 to elect representatives to serve in the 107th Congress. It marked the first time since 1992 that the victorious presidential party lost seats in the House. Leader was Dennis Hastert, who lost 2. Dick Gephardt gained 1. And given, again, the major popularity, for whatever reason, of W at the time, and this was pre-9/11 when W really shone, Republicans lost seats. They didn't lose the majority, but they lost seats. Because you did have the mainstream narrative coming out here and saying, stuffed shirt Republicans just want to give a guy a hard time for having a good time in the White House. They don't want anybody to enjoy sex unless it's missionary with half your clothes on and under the blankets and all the windows shut, and they can't handle the fact that old Bill Clinton actually got a little bit of fun in the White House. So again, and not as much of a wallop as I thought it was, but we're going to watch this and see what happens. And again, as much as I would like to see something come out of this, because I do believe that there are dirty dealings with the Uniparty. That's why the progressive movement can't get off its feet, and that's why MAGA can't really forge ahead in the government end of it. They can forge ahead on the grassroots side, but they can not do it in the government aspect. I'd like to see a major blow to the Uniparty, but I don't think it would turn out well. I think Nancy Mace is right, unfortunately. Alright, what else do we have? Speaking of people who are playing the same one note over and over again. Noted one-string banjo. Rand Paul, says Dr. Fauci, caught red-handed for lying to Congress. Nobody's lifted a finger. Do I believe Dr. Fauci lied to Congress? Yes, I do. Do I believe anything's going to happen to Dr. Fauci? Absolutely not. Do I believe that Rand Paul should drop this and start looking at economics, which is still going to be the crippling factor in the Biden presidency? Yes, I do. Is Rand Paul going to do that? No, he is not. Plunk, plunk, plunk. From Fox News staff. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul joined Fox and Friends on Monday to discuss why he says St. Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine, is lying about his involvement with the coronavirus gain-of-function research. Paul said Fauci lied to Congress which is a felony about the origins of the coronavirus and the Wuhan, China lab research. Yeah, everybody knows that. But nothing's going to happen. Oh, guy says 96. Damn, Ken Starr, Newt Gingrich, and the good old days. Here, Marjorie Taylor Greene was drawing articles of impeachment on the class president in her high school. Biden's favorite AC/DC song is Dirty Deeds. Done Dirt Cheap. Thank you, Mogwai. Rand Paul. Well, there's probably never been a government official caught more red-handed in a lie than this. Nixon. Because now he's proved the lie in his own words. So at the first, it kind of acted like, oh, well, we don't have anything to do with the research over there. We don't fund the research in Wuhan. So then we found the actual scientific papers. We found the grant number proving that it came from the agency. And then he said, oh, well, yeah, we're funding it, but it's not gain of function. My experts up and down have looked at this, and it's not gain of function. But now we have contemporaneous documents from February 2020, in the height of the beginnings of the pandemic, where he's saying privately, well, yes, we're suspicious that this virus could have come from the lab because they're doing gain of function research. And describes the project that I described to him a year later, which he said, oh, there's nothing to see there. This is not gain of function. But now we have, in his own words, admitting that it was gain of function, admitting they funded it, and admitting that it gave them suspicion to the possibility that this pandemic actually came from the lab. So now we have him dead to rights. You could have him photographed holding a clipboard that says gain of function while manipulating the genetic code in a microscope or on a monitor or something. And still nothing is going to happen to him. And there are a lot more winnable issues than this. Let's talk about Elon. Amy Vanderpool. Elon Musk is now interfering in foreign policy by shutting down satellite access for Ukrainian military operations he does not approve of, which makes him a Russian ally. Not really. It's a private industry. They keep telling me, when they do something the leftoids want, they keep telling me it's a private industry. They can do whatever it is that they want. But let's read a little bit about this here from Insider. Elon Musk refused Ukraine's request for Starlink that would help it attack Russian ships with exploding sea drones, report says. But it was Ukraine that launched the Russian ship, or I'm sorry, the ship with exploding sea drones. From Sinead Baker. Elon Musk denied Ukraine access to a Starlink satellite system near Crimea last year when the country wanted to send an explosive-filled maritime drone against Russian ships, the New York Times reported. According to the Times, Ukraine asked Musk for a Starlink access near Crimea, but Musk refused, saying, two people familiar with the discussions said he later said the company's satellites could not be used for long-range drone strikes. Crimea was annexed by Russia in 2014 and is the site of a major Russian naval base. It also serves as a key part of the Russian military supply chain. Ukraine has vowed to take it back. Ukraine has increasingly relied on Starlink for its internet and communication since Russia's invasion in February. The system, which has thousands of satellites in orbit to provide internet service even in remote regions, is often the only way for conflict zones to get internet access. Musk said Starlink was activated in Ukraine in February 2022, and Ukrainian officials said that by early May it had about 150,000 daily users, which is fine if they're going on and checking their email or doing Facebook or begging US people to go back and put the flag in their bio and send them more money. That's fine. Soldiers told the Times that Starlink enables drone pilots to find and strike a target in about a minute. compared to the 20 minutes it took before using the technology. Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's digital minister, told the Times that the huge number of lives that Starlink has helped to save can be measured in the thousands. Yeah, but the problem that I think Musk has with the problem I have with it is how many lives it's being used to end in order to save these lives. Musk is not a player in this battle, as much as anybody on the left tries to tell you that anybody who doesn't go full throat onto Ukraine is a Russian ally. Elon has he's not taking a side in this. And again, if this internet access were being used for checking email or watching Russian soldier on Ukrainian woman porn or any other number of depraved things going on in the Ukraine right now, I don't think you would have a problem with Starlink being used. It's the fact that they're outrightly saying they want to use Starlink to go kill more Ruskies. Which again, by the way, is a part of the reason that so many people are saying now that Starlink is bad, like Amy Vanderpool, because, well, Elon Musk is providing rural broadband access, which is a cornerstone of the Biden admin. They don't want him to be the one that does it. Number one, because it doesn't put government contractors to work. It doesn't require a huge amount of extra infrastructure, as most of it's done by satellite. It doesn't create government jobs, and it makes the private sector billions more dollars. On top of the fact, a member of the private sector who is, according to Amy Vanderpool, taking sides in the conflict. In other Elon news from the Daily Mail, San Francisco removes Elon's giant new brightly lit X sign over permit violations. Because that'll make it work. From Melissa Caney and Claudia Oraha, San Francisco authorities have removed Elon's huge new brightly lit X sign because it violates permit orders that they would have ignored if not for Africa Man Bad, the social media giant, formerly known as Twitter, was under investigation after Musk had the blinding sign that aggravated neighbors installed without first obtaining permits. From the San Francisco Department of Buildings, that means the government has way too much power, by the way. It's his own property. He can burn it to the ground if he really wants to. I don't suggest doing that. But he owns it. Today, workers dismantled the large X logo on the roof of the headquarters in San Francisco just over 48 hours after it was installed. They were seen scaling the luminous sign, which sat atop the buildings, before moving it piece by piece. This has nothing to do with the X logo, by the way. In case you didn't know that already. Is that gaudy and extra way too bright? I will agree with that. But this has absolutely zero to do with the fact that the logo was up there, and it had everything to do with the fact that Africa Man Bad. Investigators arrived on the scene shortly after the sign was put up on Friday to notify the company it was in violation of the city's building codes and to request access to the roof to inspect it, declaring it possibly unsafe. But a Twitter rep told the inspector the sign was a temporary lighted sign for an event, according to a city complaint. An inspector again tried to gain access on Saturday, but upon arrival, access was denied by the tenant. In a statement, San Francisco Department of Building Inspection spokesman Patrick Hannon explained a building permit is required to make sure the sign is structurally sound and installed safely. Now, and again, this is the government clamping down on the private sector because Africa Man Bad. Musk weighing in on politics. which I don't necessarily think that he should do, but also pushing back because politics is trying to clamp down on Elon Musk. Again, because Africa man bad. Time for Lindsey Graham to retire, Elon Musk declares as Graham and Elizabeth Warren press for the creation of a regulator to police big tech. From Alex Nitzberg. Elon Musk wants GOP Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina to retire. The wealthy tycoon's tweet to that effect came in response to the news that Graham has teamed up with Elizabeth Warren to propose legislation that would establish a regulatory commission to oversee big tech companies. That's really small government, Lindsey Graham. This is the duo both writing together, but I'm going to do this in Lindsey Graham voice because it's hilarious. And it goes faster than Elizabeth Warren voice, so she talks like this, very slow. So we're going to do this in Lindsey Graham voice instead. Our Digital Consumer Protection Commissions Act will create an independent, bipartisan regulator charged with licensing and policing the nation's biggest tech companies, like Meta, Google, and Amazon, to prevent online harm, promote free speech by regulating it, and competition, guard Americans' privacy, and protect national security. So, they're going to promote free speech by denying free speech, the bipartisan duo wrote in a New York Times opinion piece. That new watchdog, man, that dog on the porch there is sure pretty. That new watchdog right there would focus on the unique threats posed by tech giants. While strengthening the tools available to the federal agencies and state attorneys general who have the authority to regulate big tech. Regarding the news, Richard Hanania tweeted, Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham call for a new agency to regulate the internet. They see the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as a model because it took on nuclear power, i.e. shut it down. Anyone who cares about progress needs to work and stop this. Yes, they do. It's time for Lindsey Graham to retire, Musk tweeted when replying to Hanania's post. Graham has served in the Senate for slightly longer than 2 decades. A regulatory commission will give consumers a voice against big tech. So will not using it. You mook. And the power to punish them when it's appropriate. Yeah, you've been a very, very bad little boy. Yeah, punish me harder. The creation of a regulatory commission to oversee big tech is the first step in a long journey to protect American consumers from the massive power these companies currently wield. The GOP senator was booed when he appeared at a Trump rally earlier this month in South Carolina for damn good reason. Lindsey Graham, everyone. From Fox News, we're going to do a presidential segment. Trump vows to run for president from prison if convicted, and sentenced on criminal charges, from Brandon Gillespie. Former President Trump has vowed to continue his 2024 White House run, even if he's convicted and sentenced on criminal charges. Trump made the promise during a Friday appearance on The John Frederick Show, a pro-Trump radio program. When asked about his potential conviction, would terminate his second bid for the White House. Look, not at all. There's nothing in the Constitution to say that it could, Trump said. Even the radical left crazies are saying, no, that wouldn't stop, and it wouldn't stop me either. Trump is facing multiple state and federal charges, including 34 counts of falsifying business records in New York, 37 federal charges stemming from Special Counsel Smith's investigation into the alleged improper retention of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home. He pled not guilty to the New York charges in April and the federal crimes in June. Now, important to note. With that, he says that there's no provision in the Constitution to prevent him from running. That's technically not true, and again, it depends on what they pinch him for. It's why they're using the Espionage Act, because that can more easily translate into giving comfort to our enemies, and void him from running via the 14th Amendment. And it's a part of the reason why they're trying to make sure that he goes down on January 6th charges for insurrection, because again, if they can get a charge that says insurrection on top of him, they can come back and say you can't run because you committed an insurrection against the United States. It's part of the reason they keep pumping that word down everybody's throats, even though there was no armament and no official or even intent to take over the government. Trump maintains that each of the investigations are part of the partisan political witch hunt. But it would be entertaining to see him run from prison if they can't pinch him on either espionage, insurrection, or treason, which are the three that they're trying so hard for. From Politico, more Trump news. Trump hits back at GOP candidate who said he's running to stay out of jail. From Andrew Zhang. Donald Trump said it's wrong to suggest he's running for the presidency to stay out of prison. And signaled Saturday he's prepared to punch down at any of his rivals who suggest he's doing so. During the Lincoln dinner on Friday evening, a key Republican event in the lead up to the first in the nation Iowa caucuses, Will Hurd and Asa Hutchinson took aim at the former president for his legal troubles, echoing the line that putting a candidate facing multiple criminal charges at the top of the GOP ticket spelled electoral disaster. Hurd told the Trump-loving Iowa crowd that the former president was not running to improve America or represent the people, but to stay out of prison. The remark, delivered towards the end of his address, drew loud boos from the crowd. That continued as he walked off the stage. Good. In trademark Trump fashion, the former president responded Saturday with blistering personal attacks on his foes and pushing back hard on the idea that he's running to counter legal battles. In Iowa last night, I noticed that a little-known, failed former Congressman Will Hurd. I heard that. Did you get it? I heard that Will Hurd is ridiculously running for president. Trump wrote on his Truth Social, his social media platform. I didn't even know Hurd was in the race. He got seriously booed off the stage when he said I was running to stay out of jail. Wrong. If I wasn't running and doing badly, like him and Christie, with no choice to win, these prosecutions would never have been brought or happened. I maintain the fact that if he dropped out of the race tomorrow, the accusations and allegations would go away. The people, oddly enough, wouldn't stop calling for his head on a pike. But if he stopped running for president, the DOJ would leave him alone. We'll see if he punches down. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about DeSantis. Reminder, I am staunchly against Ron DeSantis. But I made the promise when he got in the race, this is not going to be a Ron DeSantis hate channel. And I will treat his policy prescriptions as fairly as I can, knowing full well that HB/SB 269 ended my ability for me to vote for him at all. DeSantis floats 10-point economic plan in New Hampshire. From Adam Sexton. Florida man Ron DeSantis unveiled a 10-point economic plan in Rochester on Monday as he tries to close the gap with the former President Donald Trump. As his trip to New Hampshire continues, DeSantis called for a shakeup of the U.S. trade relationship and with China and blasted elites for selling out working Americans. Well, look, man, we will declare our economic independence from the failed elites that have orchestrated America's decline from the reckless federal spending that's inflated prices, DeSantis said. Florida man, who sits on a solid second place in the GOP primary. No, it's not a solid second place. Ramaswamy is catching up to him in a hurry. Continues to face attacks from Trump. The MAGA Incorporated Super PAC accused DeSantis of copying Trump's economic plan. Donald Trump has already done everything DeSantis is pledging to do, so why would we gamble our livelihoods, our futures on someone who hasn't done it before, said Carolyn Levitt, a spokeswoman for MAGA Incorporated. DeSantis sidestepped a question from a reporter about Trump, saying the political back and forth isn't what the people who will decide this primary really care about. That is the smartest thing I've ever heard come out of Ron DeSantis' mouth. To me, if you ask voters, they're more interested in hearing about that or the process stories about politics. I think that they want to hear about the country's future, DeSantis said. That's the second smartest thing I've ever heard come out of DeSantis' mouth. Republican voters are still shopping for a candidate. Said that they want to see how DeSantis handles himself against Trump on the debate stage. Some said Monday. They agreed DeSantis' best bet for now is to throw himself fully into the first in the nation primary and show people he cares about the issues. Well, again, right there, the political back and forth isn't what the people who will decide this primary really care about. Ron, buddy, you've got to get that message down to your voters, because they are still out there screaming at anybody who disagrees with them that they're a truthless Trump-pumping hick. And again, that is a tremendously intelligent way to go back and look at this. Because the independents who are having a hard time stomaching either Trump or Biden are looking for the future. I know my parents. Oh, all we hear about is this person's the first this and the first that, or this is what my enemy did. And they don't tell us what they're going to do for us, which, I mean, if you're me, that's pretty base, because I don't want the government to do anything for me. But I'm not the typical voter either. They think that the government is their piggy bank and want the government to do more for them. But, of course, WMUR doesn't really go over what the plan is. So let's look at Fox Business. DeSantis spotlights Declaration of Economic Independence following campaign reboot in fight against Trump. He's going to try to go down the economic side, because the culture war side kicked him in the ass so hard with MAGA voters. And I hate to tell you this, and I have friends who are DeSantis people, and I hate to tell you this, but this is why you lost MAGA, and this is why Ron DeSantis is so far down in the polls, is because you can't pull the culture war stuff. Outlaw gay marriage, outlaw abortion, outlaw this, outlaw that because it's against Christian values, and expect former Democrat MAGA voters to come and get on your train. It's that simple. From Paul Steinhauser. Florida man Ron DeSantis is vowing to take aim at China government bureaucrats and what he described as the elites as the Republican presidential candidate unveils a 10-point economic plan to fight for the middle class. Aiming to rebound against former President Trump in the race for the GOP nomination and hoping to change the narrative in the wake of staffing layoffs by his campaign last week in a move to streamline his 2024 White House bid, DeSantis on Monday announced his Declaration of Economic Independence. The governor rolled out his policy proposals at an event with business owners and workers at a manufacturing facility in this blue-collar city in New Hampshire, the state that holds the first primary and the second overall contest in the Republican nominating calendar. Oh, look, we'll declare our economic independence from these failed elites that have orchestrated American decline, from the reckless federal spending that has inflated prices and plunged this nation to the brink of bankruptcy, DeSantis emphasized. We will declare our economic independence from the Chinese Communist Party. We will declare our economic independence from the central planners who seek to advance their political agenda at the expense of the well-being of the average Americans. Okay, how are you going to do that? DeSantis' economic plan consists of 10 key pillars, and topping the list is what he says is taking back control of the nation's economy from China and restoring our economic sovereignty by ending our abusive relationship with Beijing. The governor aims to reverse the nation's increasing trade deficits with China, ban imports of goods made from stolen intellectual property, strengthen protections to stop child and forced labor, and end China's preferential trade status, which would take approval from Congress. But also keep in mind, you're trying to appeal to the blue collar, who many of which do look at cheap Chinese crap from Walmart and say, hey, I can afford this. They don't want to buy from China, but buying American is very expensive. I'm not saying you're wrong on this, but there's some extenuating circumstances you have to keep in mind from this. We do need to stop our trade deficit with China. But keep in mind the labor rate for union labor for textiles and other manufacturing in this country. There's a balancing act here. DeSantis also called for achieving 3% growth by incentivizing investment, eliminating bureaucracy and red tape, and keeping taxes low. All good things, by the way. Unfortunately, this is Trump's agenda. The governor's economic plan also includes some of his anti-woke crusade, as it would beef up rules scrutinizing pension fund managers who consider climate change and other environmental factors when making investment decisions. Also, a good idea. You should be, especially if you're a hedge fund, focusing solely on how the company's doing, not what its social credit score is. DeSantis also called for reforming our educational system and lowering barriers to entry for working-class Americans and creating a fair labor market by securing the nation's borders and enforcing existing laws. Also, very good thing. It's like he's on the right track, but he, I think, is too far gone from the culture war side of things. And by the way, if this was the DeSantis that I would have seen coming out of the gate and had not signed SB 269, I would be much more in favor of him. But again, the hardest part, the biggest part, is we've got to have the conversation and get his followers to reach across the aisle to the Trump people, and you Trump people also need to reach a little bit back, because the infighting is what's going to give Joe and Kamala the White House. From NPC News, moving on, talking about the pinko pox, which is going to come out about election time next year again. Hong Kong, CDC detects coronavirus, HIV, hepatitis, and herpes at an unlicensed California lab. From Doha Madani, local and federal authorities spent months investigating a warehouse in Fresno, as they suspect was home to an illegal unlicensed laboratory full of lab mice, medical waste, and hazardous material. The Fresno County Public Health Department has been evaluating and assessing activities of an unlicensed laboratory in Reedley. The health department's assistant director, Joe Prado, said in a statement on Thursday. All of the biological agents were destroyed by July 7th following a legal abatement process by the agency. So they're in the wet market somewhere in San Francisco, is what you're telling me. Oops, did I say that out loud? The evaluation required coordination and collaboration with multiple federal and state agencies to determine and classify biological and chemical contents on site, in addition to assessing jurisdictional authorities under this unique situation, Prado said. According to court documents, city officials inspected the location at 850 I Street on March 3rd for building violations and found various chemicals being stored. On March 16th, an inspection by county public health officials allegedly turned up medical devices thought to have been developed on site, such as the Pinko-Pox and pregnancy tests. That's an odd combination. Certain rooms of the warehouse were found to contain several vessels of liquid and various apparatus. Court documents said Fresno County Public Health staff also observed blood, tissue, and other bodily fluid samples and serums, and thousands of vials of unlabeled fluids and suspected biological material. Boy, this sounds better and better. Hundreds of mice of the warehouse were kept in inhumane conditions. Court documents said the city took possession of the animals in April, euthanizing 773 of them. More than 175 were found dead. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that nightmares are made of. The CDC tested these substances and detected at least 20 potential infectious agents, including the Pinko-Pox, HIV, hepatitis, and herpes, according to a Health and Human Services letter dated June 6th. An investigation found the tenant was Prestige Biotech, a company registered in Nevada and not unlicensed for business in California. City officials spoke with Shui Queen Yao, who was identified as the company's president, through emails included in the court documents. So, we find an unlicensed lab in California, registered to an out-of-state company, and whoever the spokesman was is named Yao. Yeah, no, that doesn't raise any alarm bells. Good luck, California. You're on your own. But speaking of the Pinko-Pox, CNN tweets out, it's time to stock up on tissues, bingeable TV options, and Pinko-Pox tests. Yes, many signs are pointing to a commie-coof summer surge. No, the summer surge isn't going to come until probably right about the latest part of summer, August, September, long enough to keep it into October, November of 2024. Although one that's far less intense than what emerged the past few summers. Let's read from CNN. Go away. Fuck off, Gupta. Your recent cold could be the Pinko-Pox as the nation goes into a late summer wave, from Brenda Goodman and Deidre McPhillips. Well, let's put the death counter on the bottom of the screen. Let's force everybody into lockdown. 2 weeks to slow the spread. 2.5 years later. Oh wait, we don't do that right now because we're not trying to win an election. Honk honk. From Brenda Goodman and Deidre McPhillips. It is time to stock up on tissues, bingeable TV options, and the Pinko-Pox test. Yes, many signs are pointing to a Pinko-Pox summer surge, although one that's less intense than what emerged the past few summers. Experts say they do not expect the cases will be severe or that uptick will be prolonged. Of course they don't. And there are early signs from wastewater data that this wavelet may already be leveling out. Of course it is. But the data posted this week by the CDC shows that many of the Pinko-Pox indicators, including hospital admissions, emergency department visits, and test positivity, are once again on the rise. Independent commercial laboratories are also noting the increase. Again, we're not going to hit the peak until July, August of next year. When we look at our data, we've noticed that since the late June, the beginning of July, and probably through now, there's been a mild uptick in cases, and these are based on samples sourced from the pharmacy-based testing and also from health-based testing, said Shishi Luo, Associate Director of Bioinformatics at Helix, a gene sequencing company which has been assisting the CDC with tracking the gene changes of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the pinko pox. Based on the mix of samples Helix receives, Luo says it's been seen a 30% to 40% increase in cases since June, but because cases were already at such a low level when they started to rise, Luo says that even with this upturn, we're still in pretty low level territory compared with some previous spikes. It's coming back, and you are powerless to stop it. The good news is Netflix and Disney Plus will come back on the rise. Maybe they'll make something new. Oh wait, no, we have a writer's strike. Alright, we're at the 131 mark. So let's keep going. A few suspicious things around the country. The Krappensteins. Brian Krasenstein. Breaking. Earlier this afternoon, there was an active shooter at the Margolin Hebrew Academy in Memphis. The shooter, pictured in the image below, which, Krappenstein is trying to make this happen because he's white. Keep that in mind. But the handgun means that this is not going to take off because it wasn't a scary AR rifle. Fired off between 2 and 4 shots from a handgun shortly after entering the building at approximately 1:30 p.m. The individual fled the building after firing the shots. Reports indicate the shooter is now deceased after law enforcement successfully apprehended him. There were no reported injuries or deaths, and the lockdown of the building has been lifted. The Margolin Hebrew Academy is a co-educational school located in East Memphis. It's the only Orthodox Jewish day school in Memphis. Thank God that no one else is reportedly injured. Anti-Semitic attacks must stop. That's the important part of this. And why I'm so suspicious of the fact that the dude is deceased. Now think about this for just a second. A guy, fat white guy, balding, probably the poster of MAGA, walks into a Jewish school with a handgun, fires off 4 shots, and runs away. When he's taken down, he's killed immediately. There's no word whether he killed himself or whether the police put him down. Nobody was hurt. But he'll never be able to tell his tale. So they can come back out and scream to the high heavens that he walked into the school and screamed HH. And he'll never be able to counter, go to trial, or have his story heard. And it does look like CBS is confirming that the police were the ones who put him down. Memphis police shoot a man who fired a gun outside a Jewish school, officials say, from Gina Martinez. An armed man who allegedly fired a gun and tried to enter a Jewish school in Memphis is in critical condition after an officer shot him during a traffic stop, police said. Yeah, he dead. Shortly after noon on Monday, the Memphis Police Department received a call about an unidentified white man who reportedly fired his handgun outside the Margolin Hebrew Academy, police said in a statement. No one was injured in the incident, police said. Thankfully, that school had a great safety procedure and process in place and avoided being harmed or injured at that scene, Assistant Police Chief Don Crow said. According to the Associated Press, the suspect fled the scene in a maroon pickup truck with California plates. Of course he had out-of-state plates. And of course they were from California before the police arrived. The police said they were able to track the vehicle to Bartlett, Tennessee after being given a description by the school. Officers conducted a traffic stop, at which time the driver exited the vehicle armed with a handgun, the police said, a statement said. An MPD officer fired his weapon and struck the suspect, leaving him in critical condition, according to police. Yeah, he dead. He gone. So, I have a lot of questions about this. I I doubt they're going to get answered, and really honestly, I would not be surprised if I didn't hear about this again after tomorrow. One that went away almost immediately as well from over the weekend from 7 News Miami. MDPD, Miami-Dade Police Department, suspicious package that prompted evacuation in MIA cargo area was not explosive device. From Patrick Shalviri. So this was not a bomb threat. Then, again, the first announcements of this made it seem like this was an active bomb threat. No, this was a suspicious package. A suspicious package that triggered the evacuation of a cargo area at Miami International turned out to not be an explosive device, police said. Miami-Dade and fire rescue were dispatched to the airside portion of MIA's cargo area in the vicinity of 6650 Northwest 22nd in reference to a reported bomb threat around 5:20 p.m. on Friday. 7 Skyforce hovered above the employees across the street from Building 707 in the cargo area shortly after they were evacuated. A sensor device went off in one of the bays that had indicated there was some kind of suspicious package. It was described as a 3-foot by 3-foot by 3-foot crate. I bet you it was bananas. First responders shut down Northwest 22nd Street, which is next to the far side of the building. MDFR units set up command posts in the northern side of the airport near 67th and 22nd. The bomb squad arrived at the scene and determined the package was not an explosive device. 3 by 3 by 3. I bet you it was bananas. Banana, banana, banana. From the Blaze, older white male likely intentionally drove through a group of migrant workers standing outside a Walmart, police said. From Courtney Wheel. Police are on the lookout for an older white male suspect who allegedly drove his vehicle through a group of migrant workers gathered outside a North Carolina Walmart. Just after 1:15 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, a busload of migrant workers alighted from the white bus in the white parking lot of a Walmart in Lincolntown, North Carolina, about 40 miles northwest of Charlotte. According to Spectrum Local News, the men work at the Knob Creek Orchard in Lawndale, North Carolina, and make this bus trip to the Walmart parking lot every week. Shortly after the men got off the bus and stood underneath some shady trees in the nearby median, the driver of a black SUV made a quick turn out of the median where the men were standing and plowed through them. The shocking incident was caught on the store's surveillance footage. Police have since released a portion of the surveillance video to the public in hopes of identifying the individual responsible, which we will not show here because YouTube is age restricting again. The black SUV in the top portion of the video can be seen turning right in front of the bus, then accelerating into the embankment in the upper left. In a statement, Lincolnton police described the suspect as an older white male and claimed the incident appeared to be an intentional assault with a vehicle. They also released grainy images of the vehicle, described as an older model mid-sized black SUV with a luggage rack. Boy, that narrows it down. Six migrant workers suffered various injuries in the incident, the police statement said, and were immediately transported to the Atrium Health Lincoln Hospital for treatment. Thankfully, none of the injuries were life-threatening. All 6 men were discharged from the hospital the same day. The possible motives of the suspect are still under investigation, the statement said. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, has already weighed in and suggested the attack was a hate crime, and called for a federal investigation because of the persistent anti-immigrant hate we have witnessed. It was probably a crime of passion, not a hate crime. I'm willing to bet that this is probably a factory worker in the area who lost his job at some point, who either got sent overseas or was taken up by migrant work coming across the border, and he lost it. Probably sitting at home realizing that he's done fucked up and he's going to prison forever. Would not be surprised if he didn't turn himself in the near future. But this is crap, Don't do that. We're not vigilantes here. Do not do that. Your life was not being threatened if you were in the SUV and they're just getting off the bus, as the video suggests. And again, not playing that on YouTube because that'll get age restricted. I got age restricted, by the way, on 7 videos on my backup channel. All unlisted, by the way. Every single one of them is unlisted, which means they're not out there for public consumption. Somebody went back through them. Most of them are from 3 to 5 years ago. And decided to say, hey, we got to age restrict. And it was somebody from Google doing it too, just so you know. Because nobody else can see it. Alright, from my neck of the woods. Wall Street Silver. Looks like the feds got tired of using the name Patriot Front because it's already been exposed. Now the feds are using the name Blood Tribe and carrying flags in Watertown, Wisconsin and protesting a pride event. Similar Fed uniform clothing and masks that they used when they were using the name Patriot Front. Let's listen. Feds on parade. I will give props to the feds that they're not going in deep into the deep blue territory and trying to make this look organic anymore. They actually chose Jefferson County, Wisconsin, and I'm familiar with Watertown too, by the way. Very familiar with Watertown. I'm actually surprised with Watertown that there was a pride event there. Almost questioning whether or not that this could have been bait for something like this. Now, with that being said, that's because of its proximity with Milwaukee, where they would have been able to gather much, much more, had a better permitting process, and way more allies around them than in Jefferson County, Wisconsin. Which, by the way, is out in the sticks. It's like Watertown is a relatively big town, but it's a country town. The fact that there was a pride event there just blows my mind. I didn't even think that was possible. But from Newsweek, armed Nazi group protests pride event featuring drag show. Armed Nazi group that nobody's ever heard of before, by the way. And yet we're all expected to know the name of this group immediately. From Anna Commander. An armed neo-Nazi group protested pride at the park event in Watertown, Wisconsin on Saturday. An event that featured a drag story time and drag shows. This was bait for conservatives. And when they didn't come, they pulled out the feds. Video journalist Olia Scootercaster took to Twitter Saturday to document the protest and wrote, Blood Tribe group marching in Watertown, Wisconsin, protesting pride in the park in her videos. One neo-Nazi group member can be seen carrying a weapon. It's immediately unclear if more members were armed. Well, they had their standard service 45. Newsweek has not been able to independently verify the group seen in the video is Blood Tribe. According to the ADL, Blood Tribe is described as a neo-Nazi group with semi-autonomous chapters in the US and Canada that nobody has ever heard of before today. Blood Tribe promotes hardline white supremacist views and openly directs its vitriol at Jews, non-whites, and the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU, sometimes Y community. Yeah, that's actually my next story, Horatius. Drag events have been targeted by right-wing activists across the U.S. in recent months, with particular focus on those accessible to children. In Tennessee, Republican lawmakers have voted to ban adult cabaret performances from public property or any location which could be viewed with a child, with similar legislation being proposed in a number of other states like Kentucky and Oklahoma. So, yeah. The fact that they put a Pride event in Watertown, Wisconsin, again, screams bait to me. Like, massively. It might be the master type of bait. And yes, next on the story, as Horatius brought up, 5 members of Patriot Front found guilty of conspiracy to riot will be sentenced on Friday. So, one of two things has happened here. Number one, these are unwitting marks who got taken in by the Fed agency of this. Or number two, these people will be in Ohio next week with new fingerprints and new identities. I still don't buy Patriot Front. I know Spartan over in the Discord is going to be... if he's watching this, he's screaming at the screen saying, "It's real, damn it!" Nobody has tried to convince me of the reality of Patriot Front more than Spartan. And I still don't buy it. From Chance Watson of Coeur d'Alene Press. After about an hour of deliberation, a 6-person jury unanimously voted to convict 5 members of the Patriot Front on the misdemeanor charge of conspiracy to riot by disturbing the peace. They'll be sentenced Friday by Judge James Stowe. Misdemeanor? So, like, 3 months in county? A fine? The 5 men, Devin Settner, Forrest Rankin, Robert Whitted, James J. Johnson, and Derek Smith have all previously pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to riot, a misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in jail or up to a $5,000 fine. On June 11, 2022, 31 men with ties to a national hate group were arrested blocks away from a Pride in the Park event at Coeur d'Alene. Police found the men hiding inside a U-Haul truck after someone spotted them loading up and called to report what looked like a little army. Police say they recovered evidence that the group was planning to riot in downtown Coeur d'Alene. All 31 men were arrested on charges of conspiracy to riot. Those arrested come from 13 states, including Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, South Dakota, Illinois, Missouri, and Arkansas. So, there they are. It's archived, so I can't play the video. Because whoever owns this company, and this news outlet, and they own several across the country. They autoplay and autoplay and autoplay, but they go ahead and turn the volume back on when you've turned it off. Actually, I think we can finish up. I'm going to hold this one off till tomorrow, but we'll look at Taiwan and then we'll finish up for the day. So, the last thing that we have on, and then we'll check into live chat. So, by the way, if you are lurking, and I see that there are some people lurking, and you want to get some last minute messages in, as Horatius has done, by the way. Then feel free to do so now. This will be your last chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace. We're going to fly through these 3 articles on Taiwan, and then I'll check in with the live chat. We'll be doing a full read of the live chat because that is our Monday close, and then we'll head out of here for the day. ABC says U.S. announces historic $345 million military aid package for Taiwan. Your taxpayer dollars, not just for the Ukraine anymore. From Luis Martinez. The U.S. has announced a historic $345 million military aid package for Taiwan, which is the first time will come from existing U.S. military stockpiles instead of purchases through the Foreign Military Sales Program, the White House announced on Friday. The announcement is a lesson learned from the U.S. military assistance to Ukraine, where the U.S.-made weapons are quickly getting to the battleground, but it will also likely rile China, which considers Taiwan to be a breakaway province. Well, no, technically China is the breakaway province, because the founding government of Taiwan is the exiled members of the Chinese government after the Maoist takeover. The announcement, the Pentagon has signaled for much of the year it intended to prepare such a passage after Congress authorized $1 billion. What was that? I don't know. $1 billion for military aid to the be provided to Taiwan under what's known as the Presidential Drawdown Authority. Basically, again, they're going to sell all our surplus over to, give all our surplus over to Taiwan, and then buy all the new stuff at market prices, raising the stock profile of Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, and making a lot of people in Congress, and oddly enough me, very rich in our portfolios. The $345 million aid package was announced by the White House in a brief statement issued late Friday afternoon. So, and this, by the way, is interesting because officially, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was under a treaty that was put into place by Congress under Carter, if I remember correctly, is that we're actually obligated to recognize China's side of this because of deals that we made when we were trying to capitalize China. Get them addicted to our Coke and our freedom. Coca-Cola, not cocaine. It's not Hunter Biden. But our cocaine and our freedom, so they wouldn't be communist anymore. I think that was under Carter. I'm going to look at that off air. But regardless, we're obligated to be on China's side for this, which puts us in a precarious position when it comes down to defending or doing military drawdown, presidential drawdown, rather, act to Taiwan. And legally, I actually don't know how this plays out and what treaties and international agreements this puts us in violation of. And I think somebody who has a background in law should explain it to me because I kind of want to know. And China with its propagandistic arm. China accuses U.S. of turning Taiwan into powder keg after White House announces new military aid package. China accused the U.S. of turning Taiwan into a powder keg and ammunition depot after the White House announced a $345 million military aid package for Taipei, and the self-ruled island said on Sunday it tracked 6 Chinese Navy ships in the waters off its shores. Yeah, there's going to be a blockade there. I can promise you that. China's Taiwan Affairs Office issued a statement late Saturday opposing the military aid to Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory. No matter how much of the ordinary people's taxpayer money the Taiwanese separatist forces spend, no matter how many U.S. weapons, it will not shake our resolve to solve the Taiwan problem or shake our firm will to realize the reunification of our motherland, said Chen Binhua, spokesperson for the Taiwan Affairs Office. Their actions are turning Taiwan into a powder keg and ammunition depot, aggravating the threat of war in the Taiwan Strait, the statement said. Coming from somebody who was most likely standing on one of the warships, forming a blockade, and making sure Taiwan knew about it. The irony is not lost on me in this statement, by the way. And its last little bit of arm shaking here at the end from the Associated Press. China says U.S. military aid to Taiwan will not deter its will to unify the island. I mean, it hasn't so far in 50 years. Why would it start now? From Weijong Wu. China accused the U.S. of turning Taiwan into an ammunition depot. We saw that already. China's Taiwan Affairs Office issued a statement late Saturday opposing the military aid to Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory. No matter how much of the ordinary people's taxpayers' money the Taiwanese separatist forces spend, no matter how many U.S. weapons, it will not shake our resolve to solve the Taiwan problem. Our firm will to realize the reunification of our motherland, said Chen Benoit, in addition to what we saw in the CBS article. China's People's Liberation Army has increased its military maneuvers in recent years aimed at Taiwan, sending fighter jets and warships to circle the island. Yeah, the US is turning it into a powder keg. Take another lap around the island in an F-16 or whatever your knockoff equivalent is. So, we'll probably see that pop off before the end of the Biden admin too. Isn't that fun? You know, I left the Democrat Party when they were still claimed to be anti-war and anti-Bush. And I said, at least if they're turning communistic, they'll be isolationists and they'll be anti-war. Nope! That didn't happen. They're now as pro-war as the Bushites. How did that happen? How did we come so horseshoe theory? Not horseshoe theory. Full circle. That's probably a better explanation for it. That the Democrats are the party of war and the Republicans are the anti-war party. Or at least the MAGA side of it. Your Lindsey Grahams and your Ron Johnsons and your dickheads like that are still going to be pro-war till the day they die, because it makes them a bunch of money. Alright. And that will be the end of it. Light chat tonight, so we'll fly through that real quick. Nothing on the Rumble side. You guys on Rumble, stop being shy. On the Instagram side, I've got Lauren Vidava72 joined briefly. Might be a bot. It's Instagram after all. It's a Zuckerberg platform. They're botted. On the main side, Mogwai says, I'm glad you're on because today death news bummed me the F out. Yeah, I chose not to do that today. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. I've also skipped over Sinead O'Connor too, by the way. So, KTZed is popping in to say hello. Hello, KTZed. Mogwai says, a major freight company just went tits up. That doesn't scream growth. No, don't worry. The fastest growing economy in the world, Mogwai. Mogwai says, better be careful where they're sniffing around. Hunter might sniff something not so pure. Mogwai answered my question when the impeachment started. 96. The actual trial was 99. That's what I was looking for. Ken Starr, Newt Gingrich. Oh, the good old days. Well, the Bushites were still in control of the Republican Party. I don't know that I would call that good old days, but... Mogwai says, I hear Marjorie Taylor Greene was drawing articles of impeachment on the class president in her high school then. Biden's favorite ACD song is Dirty Deeds. But see, he likes the parody version, Dirty Deeds Done with Sheep. I swear I heard exploding sea turtles. And then that's right before Ukraine Pornhub must be scary. Let's look back. We must be talking about, yeah, when they wanted to go against the maritime ships in Crimea. I didn't say exploding sea turtles. I think that would be kind of messy, actually. Yeah, Ukraine Pornhub must be scary. Yeah, dude. Eastern Europeans are into crazy shit. Europeans in general are, but Eastern Europeans especially, they're into crazy shit. I went out with a Russian girl for a little while. It's crazy, dude. I don't even know if I want to see what's behind that VPN. Just knowing what they do offline. Mogwai says Lindsey Graham's OnlyFans name is Sugar. Mogwai says, the more and more I see Elon Musk, I am convinced this is his villain origin story. Giant tools is something Graham is an expert in. Nice. 2 decades. 2 decades of Lindsey Graham. 3 terms working on his 4th. My God, my state sucks. Horatio says 5 Patriot Front members were just convicted for the Idaho protest, more being tried. That goes against the narrative that they're all federal agents. Doubt that they would be arrested and convicted if feds. I've got some questions on that, of course. Again, it's either one thing where they're going to be thrown through the witness protection program and given new fingerprints, or more likely, because I don't think that everybody is, even in the big ones, I think that there are people out there who are taken in by this. The 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, are a real big one about that, which I consider them to be feds too, at least on leadership level. But there are a lot of marks in that organization. There definitely are. What the ratio is, I cannot be certain. But it's the thing with Patriot Front, it's the mask thing that gets me. The uniforms and the masks. The same with Blood, whatever the fuck it is. The uniforms and the mask. And if you start to demask some of these people, I think we're going to find a lot more in the Fed ratio than the marks ratio. And I'm not denying there are marks in their ranks either, by the way. Horatio says people should just look into the tactics of the feds. They use many in order to infiltrate and use groups. Well, right, but that's the other thing is I default back to the Michigan thing, the thing with Whitmer on that, and realize that that was a 13-person group and there were only 4 marks. There were 9 informants and 4 marks. Or ironically, the only ones who are going and facing an illegal repercussion are the 4 marks. Horatio says, I believe Patriot Front is legit. You can watch interviews with the leader who explains everything. I believe there are many members who are being paid by the feds just to give information. Horatio says, I don't believe China will use military action against Taiwan. I think they've been using subversive infiltration and payoffs on government there. They may do a blockade, though, only a matter of time. See, that I can actually see militarily and, as an RTS strategy player too. I can see where you come from that. But I look at what's happening with Taiwan, specifically, when I juxtapose that against what's happening with Ukraine, for instance. And when we saw what was happening with Ukraine, remember when it first started out, before they crossed the line into the Donbass region, and they were just sitting out there with the tanks throwing shells and acting like jackasses, even before they started throwing shells. They were just out there basically on their tanks sitting out there. Oops. Oh, there went my headphones. You can't do anything. And that sort of thing. To try to, and I mean, there were threats from the U.S. at that time saying, hey, we can't let them do this. Let's go in and get some boots on the ground right away. And I think China, with what they're doing with their military flybys, again, you're right. I don't think that they would directly use military action against Taiwan. But I think they're trying to pull the U.S. in to do it and throw the first missile at them. Is what I think they're doing. And I think if they don't get that, they will use military action, but it's going to be like a small incursion. They're not going to march straight towards Taipei. Yeah, Horatio says sometimes the leadership, sometimes the members, not one or the other. There are only about 300 members of Patriot Front, and they're from all over the country. The ones exposed so far are just young men wanting to be part of a group that takes action. The feds are definitely infiltrating, though. Yeah, and again, for me, it's the ratio, and I don't know what it is. And the masks. But we can sit here and talk Patriot Front for hours, or I can go get some dinner. Because it's dinner time. Bacon and blue cheese burgers tonight with a salad. It's going to be a great time. Not sure what nuclear World War III will look like with nuclear weapons. Horatius gets one more into there. I think Todd Howard showed us what World War III will look like with nuclear weapons. Todd Howard and Josh Sawyer. I don't think it'll be quite that. I hope I get ghoulified. I do. Spend eternity making fun of people for having smooth skin. Healed by radiation. In reality, I'll probably just get dysentery, but get dysentery from tainted water and crap myself to death. That's what's actually going to happen. But it's fun to romanticize being a ghoul and saying, come on, smooth skin. Should I do the outro in ghoul voice? No. I'm not going to. Should I? No. Anyway, let's head out of here for the night. Thanks everybody who came by, chatted in the live chat. It's been a great time. Remember, if you can't catch the entire show live, or you want to take us on the go, or anything else, or any other reason there, you can catch the replays on YouTube and Rumble, and over on Odyssey as well. Or you can go back and listen on the audio platform. That'll be up in a couple hours here. As soon as I get everything processed and done down, you can go check us out on Spotify and take it on the go. Otherwise, we're back here 6 p.m. Central Time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary tomorrow. It's going to be a great time. We'll see what's happening with that. A couple things left over from today that are either going to wind up on tomorrow's stack, or things that I like and things that I hate, so we'll see what happens there. And what happens in the next 22 hours. I can probably turn the background music off. I'm going to have the outro music on. That way you don't have competing musics over here. And with that, take care. Have a good night. Get some dinner. Hug your friends. Hug your families. Call somebody. And tell 10 people about this show, too. Get some more people in here. And we will see you here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Have a good night. And we'll see you next time. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary.